It is year 2 of the Coach Prime era. North Dakota State at Colorado. Coach Prime joked at Big 12 Media Days that his AD, Rick George, didn't do him any favors. North Dakota State is obviously a very storied FCS program. Carson Wentz went there. Trey Lance went there.
Yep.
Easton Stick went there, among many others. Just big picture, I'm curious, first of all, do you know Deion at all?
Yeah, no.
I knew it.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah,
DB to DB.
he was around DB. He gave me a lot of love when I was younger, and he's always been that guy. He's been a guy that's been friendly, not standoffish with the up-and-coming guys that were in the league around my time, especially my time, because he was tailing off at the end of that year with the Ravens. I think he was with the Ravens at that time, and just always shown love, man. He's been a good guy.
Let me ask you, because I don't know him. I know people that have been around him.
Yeah.
And I think there's this perception from the people that don't like him that all of this is a charade, is a front. And I think it's the exact opposite. I just think he's the rare person that doesn't have to play the game and say all the right things at the podium and be polite and he can just be himself and be. I mean, the guy is probably, who knows what his net worth is. He's got a ton of off the field stuff on top of his playing career. I just bring it up because I actually think he seems to me to actually be 100% authentic, and I think that is what actually rubs people the wrong way. Yeah,
authenticity is when you can be that way and live that way. Others can envy that for sure, because a lot of people out here in the world at this time, they don't live that way, and so when they see somebody living that way, they really can't believe that it's true. But that's him. That's who he is. He's been that way since I've known him, and nothing has changed from the playing days to who he is right now.
So what do you make of him as a coach? Last year, obviously, they have the 3-0 start. Took the college football, it took the sporting world by. I mean, it was the biggest story of that early part of the season. Start 3-0. They beat TCU, which was the defending national runners-up. They beat Nebraska. They beat Colorado State. That Colorado State game was crazy. The 11 Eastern kickoff. I mean, I host till 2 a.m. Eastern. We got off air. Game was in overtime, and I stayed until the very end. I think there was like 11 million people watching throughout that game. Yeah. But obviously, after the 3-0 start, they finished 1-8. Kind of falls apart. The O-line isn't very good. The D-line isn't very good. What are you expecting, and what are you hoping to see from year 2 in Coach Prime?
I'm definitely expecting a better showing than last year. They have skilled players, obviously, which we know. They're going to be better. They've beefed up the front on both sides of the ball, and you need that to be competitive in any league. And so I'm expecting them to take a jump. I don't know how big of a jump that's going to be. They're in a new conference, really good conference. And, when we talk about Deion as a coach, I think it's still TBD. I mean, he's coached at, at the SWAC level, which he was really good at because he could get the players that he wanted and he needed. And, the cream of the crop in that league. And so you expected him to be good, but now it's a step up. You can't talk the talk to be successful in that league. And so he's going to have to get the players, and we'll see. I mean, I think it is to be TBD with that, but I'm excited to see what happens in year 2.
Well, and that's why I think there's just like a bogus narrative about him is that, he's all sizzle, no steak. It's like last 2 years at Jackson State, 11-2, 12-1. Yep. That's, I'm not great at math, but that's 23-3 overall.
Pretty good.
Yeah, very good. And by the way, one of those losses was to an FBS team. They're, of course, in the FCS. So it's like against like-minded competition, 23-2 in the last 2 years. And so it's like, I believe he could coach. And I think last year, it just got, first of all, they just weren't very, I think this is what people forget too, is like, he took over the worst team in power conference football. And for people who forget, I'm just going to read you some of the scores from the year before Coach Prime got to Colorado to kind of give you an understanding of the situation that he took over. So last year was year 1. So this was the 2022 season, the year before he got there. Lose 41-10 to Air Force, okay? No disrespect to love the flag, whatever, but I don't think they had a bunch of pros on that team. 49-7 to Minnesota. 45-17 to UCLA. 43-20 to Arizona. 42-9 to Oregon State. 49-10 to Oregon, 55-17 to USC, 54-7 to Washington, 63-20. So he took over quite literally the worst program at the then Power 5 level.
Yep.
They improved to 4-8. And I think what's worth noting is even in their losses, a lot of close competitive games. I just mentioned in 2022, the year before he got there, Colorado loses to USC 55-17. Last year, they lose to USC 48-41. Mentioned that in 2022, they lost to Oregon State 42-9. Last year, they lose to Oregon State 26-19.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Arizona, walk-off field goal, they lost. Lose to Utah by 6. I know it wasn't pretty. And there were some bad losses last year. Make no mistake, that Oregon game was ugly. They lost to Washington State late in the year, and it was ugly as well.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't as far away from being not great, but 6-6, 7-5, as I think a lot of people think.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say, I follow the recruiting stuff a little closer than most, but they brought in some real dudes last year. Like, I think last offseason, clean house, bring in new bodies, but the quality of player this offseason is so much better. I won't bore people with too many details, but we know they signed the number 1 offensive tackle in high school football, but they got an all Pac-12 defensive lineman from Arizona State. They got a 1,000-yard receiver from Florida Atlantic. I mean, they just brought in a lot. By the way, their starting right tackle was in the Big Ten. He gave up 1 sack starting all 12 games last year. So that's the only point I'm trying to make is I do think the talent is going to be much improved, and I'm just really intrigued and excited to see what this team looks like on paper.
Well, what you just said to me right now is they were really bad last year.
And 2 years ago.
The year before.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of points.
That's a lot of points.
I mean, I didn't hear anything lower than 40 in that rundown. So it was a lot of bad games. But no, I think the thing about coaching and head coaching that gets lost in the fray, because obviously the head coach and the quarterback gets a lot of credit, but to be a really great head coach at any level, there's a level of humility that needs to be had.
Mm-hmm.
He has that, and when I say he has that, it's because when you're the head guy in charge, you're the face of the organization, face of the franchise. But you got to surround yourself with real talent at those other coaching positions.
Mm-hmm.
He's went out and got that. That is what that's what I'm more satisfied with about the whole Deion brand in general. What the shots that he the takes that people have on him being braggadocious or being, always this bigger than life guy. That's some of that could be some truth to that, but there's also a bit of humility that people miss with him. Mm-hmm. And bringing in the right guys and bringing in guys that could be better than you or more knowledgeable than you in certain situations is the recipe for success. And I think he's done that. He's brought in, Warren. I
was going to ask, do you know anybody on staff?
Warren Sapp's come in to help with the D-line and all that stuff. And so having veteran guys, other NFL coaches on staff, that helps. And so I'm excited to see what they can do as a unit.
Damian Lewis, by the way, former first-rounder, I think Houston Texans. He played at Miami. He is on the staff as well, defensive line coach alongside Warren Sapp. So I'm excited as well. Really quickly, because, you did play for Rex Ryan, right?
I did.
So what is it like? Does it matter when the coach is making headlines off the field every single week? I mean, I'm not speaking ill of Rex because he's entertaining as heck, especially on TV. But because I think that's kind of an interesting perspective is, again, it's all fun and games when you win. They struggled a little bit last year. I think they'll be better. Does it matter to players? Do they care that their coach is always in the news, that their coach maybe has had a couple run-ins with reporters over the last couple weeks? Does that matter at all?
It depends on if you're winning or losing.
Sure.
And that's always the case. When you're winning, it covers up a lot of things.
Of course.
And you kind of you can turn a blind eye to it. But when you start losing, you see really fast that the same people that were admiring you for being that person, for being the person that's seen and being the guy that's making all the headlines and talking the way that, like a Rex did at the time, once you lose, those same people attack you. So you just have to have a little bit of awareness around that.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because obviously last week, second incident with a reporter came out, but it's like, I don't know how closely you followed it, but like the reporter said some pretty nasty stuff about him. And it's like, I don't know your perspective as a player, if you ever had a bad experience with the media, now you're on the other side of it as well. It's like, even last week, it's like, it was so easy to just, this guy can't, this guy being Deion, like, he can't handle it. And it's like, as somebody who did go to school for journalism, was a report, like, there is a level of like professionalism that you in the media have to attain, and if you don't have that level of professionalism, like, it's not a birthright that you're given a credential and allowed to do whatever and ask questions. I mean, I feel like, to me, and I haven't really talked about it on air, but like, I don't know. I didn't really have a problem with some of the stuff that he said last week, especially, basically people who missed it. The second incident where there was a reporter from the Denver Post where he basically said, Colorado had made it clear that they were not answering any questions from him.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like that was one. And again, by the way, if you're 5-1, people are saying, oh, he's the next Nick Saban. Nick Saban didn't like answering questions either.
Yeah.
If you're 1-5, oh, the guy's a hack. And so I didn't have any problem with that last week, but I don't know. I find the whole situation fascinating there.
Yeah, the beat writers are the guys that you're going to be around a lot, and so you kind of quickly identify who those guys are.
You can't, right? Yeah.
And so, I mean, you talk about success and failure, or winning and losing in any league, right? There's guys that that are there to do the job and do it with integrity and do it the right way. And then there are some guys that are there to find the fissures and find the cracks to trying to poke away at that. And so if that's that guy's track record, then yeah, you don't have to deal with that. I'm actually, if that's the case, I'm happy that the university is taking a stand and not allowing him to be in that mix.
Yeah, among the things, this guy's name's Sean Keeler. He's the columnist, for the Denver Post. Among the things that he has called Deion a false prophet, Planet Prime, the Bruce Lee of BS.
I saw that one, yeah.
Dude, it's like, to me, it's like, listen, we all have opinions, right? And we all say stuff.
Yeah.
But, like, if I was going after, if you're the head coach of the Denver Broncos, whatever, and it's like, I have a right to criticize, but I think there's a degree where you can cross a line with that criticism, and then beyond that, I don't know. I think there are ways you can say that this guy has not lived up to expectations. If you believe that Deion has not lived up to expectations, now worth noting they went from 1-11 to 4-8 in his first year.
Right.
But if he's not living up to expectations, or you believe that some of the stuff he's saying isn't true, there's a way to say it without calling him the Bruce Lee of BS, which I don't even really understand what that even means. But maybe I need to be a Denver Post subscriber to fully understand the context in that one. So
yeah, no, you have the right to say whatever you want, but they have the right to refuse you entry.
That's what I'm saying.
To ask questions as well. So it's a give and take. And obviously, yes, I mean, if this guy has a history of doing this and a history of trying to bait Deion to do whatever or get whatever answer or response he wants, it can become a toxic situation. So it seems like that's what this has grown to, and so that's where we are now.
By the way, his most recent column, let me see if I can find the headlines. Well, this is not the one I was looking for, but this Sean Keeler guy, he just put out a new column, and it was actually very complimentary. So let's see. That's the point, is like, here you go. Oh, no, maybe not. The first part was very common. This is the column from 18 hours ago. Deion Sanders, CU Buffs look smart, tough, fast. I thought that was where it ended. Then he says, but are they disciplined? So, listen, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I tend to agree with you, as I don't believe that, just because you work for a fancy newspaper or TV outlet, I think there's a degree of professionalism. I do think this guy crossed it a little bit. I have no problem with that. But I am excited. Colorado plays North Dakota State, 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow on Thursday. And again, on Fox, we, of course, have North Carolina, against Minnesota.